Okay, you guys, we're kickstarting this week off with just an easy dinner. We're going to be making some hot wings with some French fries. Super easy. One of my go-to dinners. I always have wings on hand and I always have potatoes on hand. So this is a dinner that we gravitate towards when I have absolutely no idea what to cook. So we're going to start off with the fries. Now, I've just got a few fries that I've just got cut into wedges. You can cut them however you want. And I'm going to drizzle over a little bit of olive oil, probably about a tablespoon or so. And this is optional, but since I'm using some umami seasoning, I figured I would go in with some truffle oil. Now you can use white or black truffle oil, and a little bit of this goes a very long way. So I'm measuring this out, and I'm just going to use a teaspoon of black truffle oil. And this is going to give this a nice truffle flavor. And for seasonings, I've got some umami seasoning. You can do whatever kind of seasoning you want. It really just depends on what you're going for that day. So I'm just going to add some of that right on top. And for salt, since this has a little bit of salt in it, I'm going to go in with just a tiny bit of seasoning salt, just for a little bit of added flavor. And we're going to add some garlic powder. Add as much or as little as you want. Some onion powder. Black pepper. And some Aleppo pepper, which is also optional. But you season however you want. So now I'm just going to toss this together. I'm going to put this in the oven on the bottom rack for about 15 minutes. I'm going to go in and flip them over, and then I'm going to cook these for another 15 to 20 minutes until they are done and cooked completely through. All right, so I've got the potatoes on cooking. We're going to go ahead and work on the chicken wings. Now I'm doing a half batch of chicken wings because it's just my daughter and I. So got a half batch here, and with these, again, you can season these however you want, but the coating for the hot wings is still the same. Now, this recipe is on my blog. I will leave it linked down in the description box below, so you can go check that out. I'm going to add a little bit of oil, and this is just going to help the seasoning stick. Now, this is one of our favorite seasonings. This is the Killer Hogs steak rub, but you can use whatever you want. If I can find this online, I will leave this linked in the description box below so you can check out their website and just season to your taste. I want these pretty well seasoned because this seasoning rub is delicious. And I'm just going to toss these to coat. Okay, so that is done. I'm going to grab my pan here, and I've just got it lined with a little bit of parchment paper and a oven-proof rack, and I've greased it so the wings won't stick. And I'm just going to add these wings on here. Now, I didn't add any salt or pepper to this because that seasoning blend has salt and pepper in it. So I don't really need to add any more to the wings. I don't want it to be too salty. Okay, so I'm going to kind of spread these out just a little bit so that way air can circulate through there. And they get all nice and crispy. So I'm going to give my hands a little rinse. Now I'm going to put this in the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes, just until the chicken is cooked completely through. You can go in and flip these over halfway through. So I'm going to go ahead and get this in the oven. Okay, so I've got the chicken on in the oven as well as the potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and make my sauce. Now this is super, super simple. It's the traditional hot wing sauce. I've got a stick of butter here. And since I'm doing a half batch, I am going to go in with a half of a stick of butter. Now if you was doing a whole batch, you would do a stick of butter. But you can double or triple this to fit however many wings you are cooking. So I'm just going to add that in there. And you can use any kind of hot sauce or wing sauce, buffalo sauce, whatever you have on hand. I'm using this right here because it is one of our favorite sauces. Now to this, you can add as much or as little as you want. I'm going to go in with about a half of a cup. This is going to take me a minute. Okay, so I've got about a half of a cup in there. And all I'm going to do is pop this on the stove over low heat. And I'm going to melt this butter down. And I'm going to cook this for about 2 to 3 minutes. After the butter has melted, pop a lid on it. It will stay warm on the stove until the chicken wings are done. All right, my chicken wings are done. They are completely cooked through. They are nice and crisp. And I've got my little hot sauce mixture here. And I'm just going to give this a little stir before I add it into this bowl with the chicken wings. Make sure everything is nice and combined because it does separate while it sits. And it's still warm because I kept it on the stove. And I'm just going to pour this all over these chicken wings, and I'm going to toss this together. And the French fries are done. So when I get these tossed together, dinner will be ready. And I'll show you my plate. Okay, here's my plate. Now, here is a little tip for the hot wings. If you want the sauce to be a little bit thicker, add a little bit of cornstarch to the butter and hot sauce before you cook it on the stove, and then just let it melt together and thicken up over low heat until it, gets nice and thick to the consistency you want, and it will coat the wings a little bit better. I do either or, and it's absolutely delicious. And then I just served it with those potatoes, which had a nice little kick from that Aleppo pepper, but this was so, so good. All right, you guys, so today I'm going to make something super simple. We're going to make some salmon patties with some stick of butter rice. I, however, am not using a whole stick of butter. That's just way too much butter. So I'm going to do about a half of a stick of butter. And then I'm just going to make some green beans to go along with it. So I've already got my green beans prepped, ready to go on the stove. We're going to start off with the rice because this is going to take the longest to cook. I've got a cup of rice here that I've already rinsed. And I'm going to add them to my little dish here, which I've already got greased. It's a little bit of avocado oil. It's ready to go. Make sure I get all of that rice in there. And I've got a can of French onion soup. And a can of beef consomme. You can also do beef broth. And I'm just going to stir this together. Make sure it's all nice and well combined. And then we're just going to top this with a little bit of butter. And I'm going to put some foil on the top of this, and I'm going to cook this for about 30 minutes covered. And then once that has cooked 30 minutes, I'm going to then uncover it and cook it for an additional 30 minutes uncovered. And while this is cooking, we're going to go ahead and start on the salmon patties. So I'm just going to cover this up. My oven is preheated to 425 degrees. And I'm just going to put this in there. 30 minutes covered, 30 minutes uncovered. And that will be good to go. All right, so while the rice is cooking, we're going to go ahead and prep our salmon patties. Now, I've got a can of salmon here that I've already went and deboned. So it's good to go. It's all flaked up. And then I've just got my ingredients to go in it. Now, this recipe is on my blog, so I will leave it linked down below. So I've got some crackers, eggs, some seasoning, corn, onions, some green pepper, green scallions, salt and pepper. So we're going to go ahead and get this all combined. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my eggs. And I'm going to get those a little broke up into this salmon here, just to help it mix a little bit better. Or you can just do this in a bowl and then add the eggs to the salmon. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my green onions. A quarter of a yellow onion, or you can do a red onion. It's just finely diced. Some corn. If you don't like corn, you can leave it out. I'm going to add a little bit of dill. Got about half of a teaspoon. Some garlic powder. Again, about a half of a teaspoon. We're going to add some baking powder, about a teaspoon. Some salt and pepper. Now season to your taste with salt and pepper. I'm going to add probably about half of a teaspoon. And some pepper, probably about the same amount. Okay. And in my recipe, I use breadcrumbs, but you can also substitute that for crackers. You can do any kind of crackers. You can do saltines. You can do the club crackers, which I've got here. And I've just kind of smashed them up into like breadcrumb consistency. And I'm just going to mix this all together. And then I'm just going to get these pattied out and onto a plate. And I'm going to pop these in the refrigerator. And I'm just going to let them sit and hang out for about 15 to 20 minutes before I go to fry them. Because the reason why I'm doing that is because I've got about an hour left to go on my rice. And I don't want to cook these too early and they get cold. So I'm just going to go ahead and prep this up. And then about 20 minutes before the rice is done, I'm going to go ahead and fry these. So just mix it up, patty it out, put it on a plate, cover it with plastic wrap, pop them in the fridge, and then they are ready to go whenever you are. Okay, so I've got my salmon patties here, and I've taken them out, and I let them come to room temperature for about 5 minutes, heated my oil up, and now I'm just going to carefully add in my salmon patties into some oil here. And I'm going to cook these about 3 to 4 minutes on each side, just until they are nice and golden brown and crisp and cooked completely through. And then we're going to take these out and put them on a paper towel lined plate so they cook, so they cool. Okay, so these have been cooking for about 4 minutes, and I'm just carefully flipping them over. And I'm going to cook these another 2 to 3 minutes on this second side and make sure they are completely cooked through. And then we'll remove them and put them on our paper towel lined plates. The rice should be done in about 5 minutes. So will the green beans. And then we'll put this all together and I'll show you my plate. Okay guys, here is my plate. Now I think salmon patties are a very budget-friendly thing to buy and make for your family. You can add any kind of spices or vegetables to it and just patty it up and fry it, and it's always a come-through meal to serve on any day of the week. It's something that I had a lot of growing up, and it's just one of those things that I absolutely love. As far as the brown rice, my daughter loved it. She loved that rice. She ate nearly all of it. But this was a very easy put together meal, and it was so, so delicious. Today I am making a delicious lemon pasta. And I'm going to serve a side salad to go along with it. I'm going to be making, well, I've made my strawberry and candy pecan salad. That is on my blog. You can find that linked down below. But I've got some pasta, some spaghetti pasta here, cooking up in some salted water. And I'm going to go ahead and preheat my skillet here. And I'm going to add in about 3 tablespoons of butter. And I'm just going to let that start melting down. Now, if I can find this recipe online, I will leave it linked down in the description box below. If not, I will leave the cookbook that I'm using in the description box, and you can check that out in my Shop My Books section of my Amazon store. Now that the butter is pretty much melted, I'm going to go ahead and add in some garlic that I've just got minced up. And I'm going to cook this down for about a minute until that garlic gets nice and sizzly and fragrant. Now that that garlic is fragrant, I'm going to add in some lemon zest and lemon juice. And I'm going to give that a little stir just to make sure everything is a little bit incorporated. I'm going to turn my heat down to low. And I'm going to add in some heavy cream. And just mix that all together. This smells divine. I love anything lemon flavored. Now I don't want this to come up to a boil because I don't want my cream to separate. So while my pasta finishes up, I'm just going to cut this off and let the cast iron pan heat up that cream. If you have a non-stick, just keep that temperature on the lowest setting it can go on. And this is thickening up pretty well, even with the heat cut off. And it's going to continue to thicken up. Okay, so I've cut my heat back on, and my pasta is pretty much done. It's al dente, and I am going to just add my pasta directly into my sauce. And some of that pasta water is going to get in there, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. And now I'm just going to toss this together, and I'm going to let this pasta finish up cooking in this sauce. And I'm going to season this up with a little bit of salt to taste. You can add a little bit of pepper if you want. And it's so nice and creamy, so lemony. I just love everything lemon. So I've got that mixed up a little bit. I'm going to go in and add a little bit of salt and season to taste, as always. Now this would be good with some grilled chicken. You can do it on the indoor grill, pan fry it, or you can do it outside on the barbecue grill. That would be really, really good. But I'm going to serve this with a side salad and call it a day. And this looks delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I'm going to tidy up a little bit and let that pasta soak up a little bit more of that sauce. And then I'll make my plate and I'll show you my plate. All right, you guys, here is my plate. I just plated that spaghetti up with a salad. Now this pasta was absolutely just divine. I'm going to add a little bit more lemon juice to this next time I make it because I love everything lemon. And I just served it with my strawberry salad. Now I did add a little bit more berries to this. I added some blueberries and blackberries just because I had them on hand. And this was such a super easy and delicious dinner. Okay guys, it is a rainy day out today. It is dreary and it's great porch sitting weather if you just want to listen to the rain. It's not storming, but it's raining. So we're going to make some beef stew. Nice comforting bowl of beef stew. Just sounded so delicious for dinner. So I'm just going to start by adding a little bit of olive oil to a Dutch oven here. I'm going to turn my heat down to about low. And I'm also going to add in some butter. I want the cooking temp of the oil, but the flavor of the butter. So I've got a chuck roast here that I just diced into, I don't know, 1-inch cubes, about yay big. And I went ahead and seasoned them with some salt and pepper. You can do whatever kind of seasoning you want. I just went simple today with some salt and pepper. And I'm going to brown these up. I'm going to cook them in batches so they don't steam and they get nice and golden and crisp on the edges. And once these are done, I am going to take them out and put them in a separate bowl while we work on the second batch. So I'm just going to let these cook, brown up, flip them over, let them get nice and golden on the other side, remove them to the bowl, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so the second batch of beef is done. It's not completely cooked through. We're going to continue to cook this for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So the meat is going to get done, plus it's going to get so nice and tender. We've got that all done. I'm just going to set this meat to the side. Now I'm just going to add in an onion that I've just got diced up roughly. I'm going to add a little bit of salt just to help that onion sweat down. We're going to season it up with a little bit of pepper. Just a little bit because we're going to add more seasoning to this later. And you don't want to add too much salt. You can always add some more later if you need it. So I'm just going to cook this onion down till it gets semi-tender, about 5 minutes. And then we'll add in some more ingredients. All right, so now that the onions have cooked down, I'm just going to go in and add some garlic. And we're going to cook this down for about a minute or two, just until we smell that garlic. There is no better smell than onions and garlic cooking. It just smells delicious. Okay, now I'm going to cut my heat off because we're going to add in some bourbon. You can use any kind of whiskey that you like. Just make sure that when you add this in your pan or your Dutch oven, make sure the heat is off so you don't have like a big ball of fire come from your stove. Just make sure your oven is off. I'm going to add in some whiskey. Get that started. Now I'm going to turn my heat back on. I'm going to cut it down to about medium-low. And I'm going to let this cook and reduce just for a couple of minutes, just to cook that alcohol out of that whiskey. And all you're going to be left with is the delicious flavor of the whiskey. Okay, that reduced down quite fast. So we're going to go in and add in some chicken stock. I've got 6 cups of chicken stock. And I'm going to add that right in. Now I'm going to kind of give this a little stir, kind of scrape up any bits that are on the bottom of the pan. The whiskey should have deglazed pretty well. And to make this beef flavored, I'm going to add in some beef bouillon. I'm going to give that another little mix just to break up that bouillon a little bit. And this smells so good already. That whiskey just adds a ton of flavor to this beef stew. Now we're going to go in with a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, some tomato paste. I'm just going to use up what I've got left in this little tube here, which is about 2 tablespoons. And I'm going to give this a little mix just to break up that tomato paste, and it's going to give it a really good depth of flavor. I'm going to add in some smoked paprika. And I'm going to add in some sugar. Not enough to sweeten it, but enough to give it a little bit of flavor. You can skip the sugar if you don't want to add any in there. I'm going to add in a little bit more salt. Not much, because that chicken stock and the beef granules have salt in it. So I'm just going to add a little bit now. We can adjust it later. And I'm going to go to town with some pepper. I love pepper, so I'm going to add quite a lot. Probably about half a teaspoon maybe. Okay, I'm going to give this a stir. Make sure everything is nice and combined. And now for the beef, we're going to add all of the beef and the juices right into the pot. Don't want any flavor left behind. So scrape all those beef juices out right into the pan. Give this a stir. And now I'm going to bring this up to a boil. I'm going to cover it with a lid, turn it down on low, and I'm going to let this cook for about an hour and a half. And then we'll add our vegetables, and then it'll continue to cook for a little while longer until the vegetables are good and tender. So I'm going to go ahead and let this do its thing, and I'll meet you back here when we add the vegetables. This beef stew has been cooking for about an hour and 30 minutes, and it smells absolutely delicious, but we are not done yet. We're going to go in and add in some carrots and potatoes. Now I just cubed up the carrots and diced up the potatoes and chunked them right in. We're going to cover this back up with the lid, and we're going to let this cook for another 20 to 30 minutes, just until those carrots and potatoes are tender. Now, before I added the carrots and the potatoes, I removed about 3/4 of a cup of the cooking liquid, and I just let that cool while the carrots and potatoes cooked for the 20 to 30 minutes. And then I mixed that with a little bit of flour, made sure it was nice and combined, and then I just added that in with the beef stew so that way it can cook and thicken up and get nice and delicious. It took about 5 minutes for it to thicken up. Alright, here is this bowl of soup. There's just something about adding bourbon or any kind of whiskey to a beef stew that just puts it over the top and makes it just that much better. This was so good. I served it with some sourdough. I had some sourdough bread that I had left over from the week, so I just cut it into slices, added a little bit of olive oil, popped it under the broiler, let it toast up on both sides, and this was so good. But that is going to wrap up this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave me a comment in the comment section down below. If you want any of these recipes, check the description box. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.